Hey, what's up guys, this is Big Brace channel, your go-to place for all things programming. My name is Amir and today I'm excited to show you how to create a powerful Node CLI application to calculate the sales tax on your purchases that you owe based on your state of residence in the United States of America. So whether you're a seasoned developer or just starting out, this tutorial is for you, I'm sure. Grab your favorite coding tools and let's dive right in. And before we get started, please don't forget to subscribe because I noticed that a lot of you guys who watch my tutorials on the channel do not subscribe. So it won't cost you anything, just hit the subscribe button, like and share the video. This helps the channel actually to grow bigger. So thank you so much again for all of those of you who have subscribed lately. Thank you so much for all of the members of the channel. Your effort is greatly appreciated. So as you can see, this is a command line application built using Node.js, which will calculate the sales tax and the total cost of a purchase based on the user input of the purchase amount and the state where the purchase was made. We have here a question: enter the amount of the purchase. Let's say for instance 1,250. We will hit enter, then enter the state where the purchase was made. There is a validation check here for both the amount, by the way, and the state. So the state should be only 2 letters, not 3, not 1. For example, New York, if you will type NYC for New York City, we will have an error message. Please enter a 2-letter state code. If I will delete the C and I will hit enter, we will get now the correct output. Amount $1,250, the tax is $50 based on 4% tax rate, and the total to be paid is $1,300. So the application here uses the SQLite database to store the tax rates for each state. And as you saw, when you enter a state code, the application queries the database to retrieve the tax rate for that specific state. By the way, I want to show you if we'll enter anything. We'll have here a validation check. It's not a number, so please enter a number. Let's enter a valid number. I'm going to deliberately enter the same amount, $1,250, to show you that the tax rate changes based on the state you're living in. So let's say for instance California, not necessarily in capital letters. So if you will type like this, CA, we will have a function that will convert letters to capital letters. So don't worry about that. We'll hit enter and you will have here $90 tax because the tax rate in California is higher than the one in New York City. We have 7.25% tax rate opposed to 4% tax rate in New York City. And again, the rates change based on the states, and I found all of these rates actually here, taxfoundation.org. So you will go to state taxes, then you will go in the individual and consumption taxes in the sales taxes part. Then you will come here to state and local sales tax rates for 2023. You will hit that. And then you will have here download data. And you will find here the 45 states sales taxes. Let me just show you. So Alaska, for example, is 0%. California is 7.25%. And that's exactly what we have found here, 7.25%. And so on and so forth. We're going to take all of that and embed it in our code. So yeah, that's it. This is the end of the introduction. In the next part, we're actually going to code our application. All right, welcome back. So the first thing that you want to do is to open your terminal. You can create your own folder. I'm going to create mine. I'm going to call it simply taxes. So change the directory to taxes and start by creating a node project. To do that, npm init-y. So that's going to create a basic node project. Next, we want to install our 3 main packages or modules. So we need Chalk module, we need Inquirer, and SQLite 3. npm install Chalk, Inquirer, and SQLite 3. Let me just take a look very quickly what's happening here. So if we'll go to package.json, what you will need to do is come below here. What we will add is the type to be module, and we will save that because without this, the importing of the modules will not work as expected. So let me actually create the file. I'm going to call it tags.js. All right. So let's say, for instance, that we want to declare 3 different variables: Chalk, Inquirer, and SQLite 3. So if you will do like that, const Chalk equal to require Chalk, this will not work. If you're going to do like this, it will not work at all. Instead, you will need to import it. Similarly, if we'll do const Inquirer equal to require and here Inquirer, look, already it's complaining here. File is common.js module. It may be converted to an ES module. And the same thing for SQLite 3, by the way. So to solve this problem simply, let me just add this comment these lines out. And to solve this problem, we will simply import. So you will import Chalk from Chalk. We will import Inquirer from Inquirer. You see there is auto-completion here. I'm using NewVim, by the way. You can use Visual Studio Code if you want. It really doesn't make a difference at all. So here we can import SQLite 3 from SQLite 3. All right. Now, if I will save, we won't get any problems. Just they are declared but never used. That's not an issue at all. So after importing our 3 main packages, what I want to do is I will create a new instance of SQLite database, and I will assign it to a variable called db. So I'm going to do like that. And specifically, the database that we're going to create is going to be created in memory using a special name column memory column. So let me show you. We'll do new SQLite 3 dot database, and here we'll say column memory column. So let me explain that. What is SQLite? And I'm going to talk to you as you are beginner to pre-intermediate level Node.js programmer, okay? I'm going to try not even to explain each code line, but each function. Sometimes I explain everything by code blocks and I don't get to details. I want to make sure that you understand each function. So SQLite, it's a software library. What it does, it provides a relational database management system. So unlike traditional RDBMS, SQLite does not have a separate server process that runs continuously in the background, right? Because we don't have that here. So if we have something like MariaDB with XAMPP, we will have a server that is running in the background. We don't have the luxury of this here. So SQLite library basically is linked directly into our application that is using SQLite. And the database is accessed through some function calls. So we invoke some functions or we call some functions that help to access the database on demand. So that's basically it. So first of all, the new keyword here that's used to create a new instance of the SQLite 3.database class, which by the way represents a connection to SQLite database. So that DB here is the database or SQLite 3 database connection. The column memory column is a special name that tells SQLite to create the database in memory rather than on a disk. So this can be useful for testing, or our case here, our application doesn't need to store data permanently. So when we'll exit our application, in-memory database will be destroyed and any data stored, by the way, will be lost. But I'm using this here because we have a lot of state codes and tax rates. So that's the main reason why I'm using that. So I hope this line is clear for you guys. The next thing that I want to do here is to create a new table. So we're going to create a new database table using SQLite statement. So I'm going to say db.serialize, and this takes callback function. And before I go on, I want to explain what is the serialize and what's that callback function and what it returns. So the db.serialize here, that's a method that is used to ensure that the database operations are executed in sequence rather than concurrently. All right, listen carefully. That's here the serialize method again is making sure that everything goes here, because we're going to use the db.run method on different steps to create a table. Then we will insert values to that table. So we will have different operations here. So we'll have db.run twice. So why it's important to make sure that these operations are executed in sequence rather than concurrently or in parallel? Because the db.run that we're going to use here, the db.run, this db.run method is an asynchronous operation. And asynchronous operation means that there is an operation running without blocking anything else, without blocking the main thread. Different operations can work concurrently in the same time without blocking each other. And executing multiple asynchronous operations at the same time can lead to unpredictable behavior. And that's very bad. You can get your application being crashed because of this unexpected behavior. So that's the main role of the db.serialize method here. All right, now for the db.run, now that's the database connection .run method. The run method simply is going to run a database statement. And that database statement is going to create a new table. We're going to call it tax rates, for example. So I'm going to use the template literals, and I'm going to say here, create table if not exists, and the name of that table. So we'll say tax underscore rates. And we will need two fields, the state and the tax rate. So state is going to be obviously text, and the rate is going to be float. All right, that part is pretty clear, I hope, guys. Now I will need a second db.run. Again, db.run is an asynchronous operation. And the role of that db.serialize is to make sure that those db.run operation or the database operations are run or are being executed in sequence. This first, then that first. So basically to make sure that they are running synchronously, not asynchronously. So we need a new statement, a new database statement to insert into the tax rates table both fields, right? The state and the rate. So let's go ahead and do that. And we said we want the state and the rate. What I mean by we want the state and the rate, I mean we want to insert those values inside the tax rates table, and that will come next. So here, values, and I'm going just to convert all of that. I did that before, obviously. I'm just going to paste that in. Again, all of this comes from this table here. Right, so you can download that, or you can click the link below for the GitHub code and you can download that easily. The next thing that I want to do is to use the Inquirer package to prompt the user to enter different inputs. So the Inquirer, let me just show you very quickly. So that's a collection of common interactive command line user interfaces. So I don't think, yeah, we can install it like that. These are pretty simple examples. So you can see here that there are different ways to be prompted. So Inquirer is obviously used for questions and answers. And the Inquirer.prompt actually returns a promise. So we can do .then, .catch any errors, and so on. So you can see here, right? That returns promises. And the different ways to be prompted, you can use the arrow, you can do multiple MCQ, multiple choice questions. You can use the arrow, as I said, you can use numbers, right? We can use checkboxes. What we are going to do is simpler than that. So let me show you what we're going to do. I'm going to take the Inquirer module dot prompt, and again we said that Inquirer dot prompt returns a promise. That's the documentation saying, and what I want here is an object. So just before we go on, just to connect the dots together, following these asynchronous operations, we will have to use .then later to retrieve the tag traits from the SQLite database based on the state that you will enter for the purchase. But for now, we are going to prompt the user to enter the amount of the purchase and also to enter the state code. So we need three attributes basically. We need the type, and that's going to be an input. We need also the name, and that's going to be the amount. And I need also the message, right? So the message here is going to say enter the amount of the purchase. The next thing that I want to do is to do validation checking. So if I will do validate here is going to take a value. That's not entirely correct, like that. And we need the value based on which we need some sort of validation checking. This line of code here basically is doing what? Is checking whether a given value is a valid number or not. So what I want to do is to create a valid variable or declare a valid variable, and I will say is not a number. The is not a number method returns a Boolean value, whether true or whether false. You can read the description here. So this returns a Boolean value that indicates whether a value is the reserved value, not a number. Then I will pass inside that function, and notice that this function is the opposite of the actual function. Why is that? I will tell you in a second. But first I want to pass inside the value, but I want to parse it to float. So the parse float function here is going to be used to convert the value to a floating point number. And if the value cannot be converted to a number, it will return not a number, or nan, N-A-N. And that exclamation mark, this not operator, this actually negates the result of the is_nan function. So if the input is a valid number, it's going to be valid, and it will be otherwise if it's false. So yeah, I hope this is clear for you guys. And if you have any questions or anything is not clear to you, please write me your questions in the comments below. So what I want to do, if valid is true, then the input is a valid number and the function will return valid. And if valid is false, means that the input is not a valid number. So we will return valid, or we will simply return something like please enter a number. So after validate, we will need to filter. So let's come here and filter the value to return the parse floated, if I may say that, values, right? So we want only to filter the value, and we will parse float these values. Let me show you in the console. So let me show you an example on filter. So let's say that I want to create an array, and I'm going to call that array x, const x, and that x is going to be an array of different values, floating numbers and strings. So let's say 1 or 1.23 summer, for instance. Let's say 3. I don't know, 56. So that is the X array. Now I want to create a filter array to return only the floating point numbers. So I'm creating filtered X, fx, and that's going to take the X dot filter method. That's the method that we are looking for, in order to pass inside here the value, and I want to return the value, but before we want to parse float that value. Right, so we have X and we have fx. Now if you will type fx, you will have 1.23 and 3.56. So let's get back to our code, and let me now get outside of this code block and have another type name, message, validate, and filter. We did that for the amount. Now we're going to do it for the state code. So type is, again, input, name here is the state, and we want the message. So what we can say enter the state where the purchase was made. Then we want the validate, and validate, again, I've explained it above. It's going to take the value, and we are going to return. So that's the function that will validate the user's response, right? So what I need now is the regular expression. Now I know the regular expression is not the smoothest part for any programmer. For me, it's a headache. I hate regular expressions, but they are very, very useful and handy. And I can recommend you a very good video for David Mail in Computer Science 50 for Harvard University, where he explains the regular expressions in a very simple and smooth way. So I might leave the link to that also in the description below. You can check it out. But basically what we want to do is to create or declare a variable called valid. And that valid here, you can find them on internet, by the way. So it's not a big secret. You can type in Google, for instance, that you're looking for a regular expression that checks if the value is 2 letters or not. But basically it's going to be something like that. So // then we will have the caret. Then inside an array, we have A, Z, A, Z. Then we want only 2. So you can do that if you want to the checking to be 3 letters or 4 letters or 5 letters, as you want. But as we want only 2 letters here, so we're going to define that we need only 2 letters. Then following that, the $sign, then dot test method, and we will pass the value inside it. Right? So the test is a method that returns a Boolean value, as you can see, which indicates whether or not a pattern exists in a search string. That's exactly what we are looking for. With the regular expression, so this valid variable should be very solid. And again, we want to return valid, or we will return an error message, something like please enter a 2-letter state code. And then again, we're going to filter. So I'm going to filter based on the value, and we're going to return the value that you have entered, the state code that you have entered, and I'm going to use toUpperCase method. So toUpperCase is a method that converts your input to uppercase, simply like I showed you with California. If you'll type it CA in small letters, you will hit enter, it will be transformed into CA in capital letters. So that's simply it, guys. That's the hardest part of the code. After that, everything is easy, I can say. Now I'm going to use a .then. Let me just make like that. Now we're going to use .then because we said that Inquirer.prompt returns a promise. Then we need to follow that by .then. And .then method generally is only called on a promise. In our case, this promise is returned by the Inquirer.prompt function. So we're going to destructure the response object to extract the amount and the state promises. To do that, simply I'm going to open paren, and I'm going to open another paren, and then inside here, inside curly braces, we will have the amount and the state. That is the destructuring of the response object to extract both the amount and the state properties, as we said. So let's simply return here another db.get, and db.get simply we're going to select the rate from the tax rates table. So again, I'm going to use the template literals to have my database statement to select the rate from the tax rates. Why I have two taxes rates? That's not correct. It's tax rates only. I think I have an error somewhere. So let's get down here. Let's change that. Yeah, now that's better. Where the state is equal to, and that's a placeholder basically, and we will substitute that with the state. Then we'll have two different inputs. That's a callback function, by the way. So inside the arguments of that callback function, we will have error and row. So we'll say here if we got an error. So if we have an error, then I want to console.error. I'm using the choke library.red color, and I'm going to say an error occurred while retrieving yeah, that's correct, retrieving the tax rate data. Let's just put it like that. Then I'm going to console.error chalk.red and that error. Then we will return. So if not row, in that case, I want to say that that's not a correct state code, because row basically is the state code. So if not row, that means that this is an invalid state code basically. So I will say console.error. Again, I'm going to use the chalk.red method, and I will say invalid state code. Then I will return. All right. Now we are almost done. I need now to have three different variables, to declare three different variables. The rate, what is the rate? The row dot the rate. The rate of that state code. So that rate, then I need the tax, and the tax is going to be the amount multiplied by the rate. That's the tax. Then the total. We're going to add both. So const total, and that's going to be amount plus the tax. Then finally, we're going to console.log chalk.green, and here I'm going to say amount, and we'll do like that, amount dot to fixed. That's for the floating numbers only, to have two decimal, not more, two decimal numbers. And then console.log, also using the green color, and here the tags. So I'm taking the tags dot 2 fixed, here also 2 numbers. Then I want the rate multiplied by 100. So here we'll have the $sign and the rate. Before that, I think I missed something. So yeah, curly braces first, then parentheses, rate multiplied by 100, dot 2 fixed, again 2%. And you can find all of these formulas online. And finally, console.log, and we want to log now the total. So again, chalk.green, and again using the template literals. Total is $sign twice, total.to fixed. And we are going to fix again on 2 decimal points. Finally, and that's totally optional, you can catch any potential errors. So you can do catch, right, and like this. And we can say console.error. Again, we are using chalk.thread, and we will say an error occurred while prompting for input. And finally, we console.error that error. And don't forget to do chalk.thread like that. All right, so that's pretty much our application. It's complaining here. I think I did something wrong. Oh, okay. So total, that's the first thing. And let's just organize this a little bit because obviously it's complaining. Yeah, okay. So that's total here, and that is a parenthesis instead of curly braces. So that's basically it, guys. Just be careful. Do not forget that SQLite 3 is without curly braces. Otherwise, you will get an error. All right, so let's go ahead and try our application out. Node tags.js. Great. So yeah, enter the amount of the purchase. Let's say 9,000. Let's try, for instance, I don't know, Arizona. We got 6.50% for Arizona, so you will pay $9,585. Let's try the same thing on different state, for example, Arkansas. We've got 0% for Arkansas. I think it's the code for Alaska. I'm not really sure. But yeah, let's try again 9,000, or let's try 12,567 for LA. So we got 4.45% tax rate in Los Angeles. So we're going to pay $559.23. All right, so that's basically it, guys. I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments section below. Write me your feedback. Tell me what do you think about these kinds of tutorials. It's not too hard, not too easy, and I hope that you're really learning something new and that I'm not going too fast or too slow, but in a comfortable pace for you to understand. All right, so again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Till then, stay safe and be well. See you later, guys.